When Karoline Leavitt sat down for her Fox and Friends interview, the weight of the moment was heavy across the nation. A horrific attack in Michigan had left 4 worshippers dead inside a Latter-day Saints church and 8 more wounded. The suspect drove into the church, fired on the congregation, and even set the building ablaze before being stopped by police. Families are shattered. A community is mourning, and Americans everywhere are once again confronting the reality of violence inside a place of worship. Leavitt began by addressing the tragedy head-on. She told viewers that according to her direct conversations with the FBI director, investigators believe the gunman harbored hatred toward the Mormon faith. She cautioned that much remains unknown, but insisted that agents are executing search warrants, gathering evidence, and questioning relatives. The family is cooperating. She said the search for motive continues. Was this premeditated? Did the attacker leave a note? How long was he planning it? These are the questions federal agents are now focused on. She called the act evil and emphasized that the president and administration are committed to helping law enforcement uncover the truth. She reminded Americans that patience is needed as facts come to light, but also sought to assure the public that every resource is being directed at this case. At the same time, she underscored the emotional toll, noting how devastating it is to see a sacred place turned into a crime scene. From Michigan, the conversation shifted to the Middle East. Leavitt told Fox hosts that Israel and Hamas are very close to finalizing a framework agreement that could end the Gaza war. She explained that the White House has been working with Qatari mediators and that President Trump will soon meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington to discuss a 21-point plan. She said both sides will have to give up something and that neither will walk away entirely satisfied, but that is the nature of negotiations. The aim, she insisted, is to stop the bloodshed and bring stability to the region, even if the agreement is imperfect. Her tone suggested cautious optimism. She framed the administration as pushing hard for peace and closer than ever to securing it, yet observers know how fragile such diplomacy can be. Deals touted as close have collapsed before, and her strong assurance raises expectations that will be hard to manage if talks falter. For now, though, the White House wants the public to believe a resolution may be within reach. The discussion then turned back to domestic politics, with another looming crisis in Washington. A government shutdown is just days away if Congress fails to approve funding. Leavitt declared that the president wants the government open and workers paid. She said this is a final chance for Democrats to come to the table and be reasonable. She insisted the administration has been willing to negotiate, but warned that obstruction will be to blame if agencies shutter their doors. Her comments reflect the balancing act of projecting strength while shifting responsibility onto opponents. By emphasizing that Trump wants funding secured, she seeks to reassure anxious Americans, but at the same time paints Democrats as risking the shutdown. The standoff echoes past budget battles, but the stakes remain immediate. Federal workers face uncertainty. Markets react nervously. Public trust in governance frays as each deadline passes. As the interview continued, the threads of tragedy, diplomacy, and politics wove together into one tense narrative. On the Michigan church attack, the press secretary set an early frame. This was a targeted act against faith, she said, though she stressed that investigators still seek proof. On Gaza, she offered the hope of peace, while admitting compromise would leave both sides unhappy. On the shutdown, she warned of consequences but cast blame squarely on Democrats. The risks are clear. Speaking too soon about motive in Michigan could backfire if evidence points elsewhere. Raising expectations about Gaza could harm credibility if no deal emerges. Threatening blame over the shutdown may be politically useful but could also deepen division. Still, Leavitt leaned on a tone of urgency and control, projecting that the White House is leading through crisis rather than being consumed by it. What remains unanswered lingers heavily. Did the Michigan gunman act purely out of religious hatred, or were there other influences? Was the timing linked to the recent death of LDS President Russell M. Nelson, or was it coincidence? Did he act alone or with encouragement from others? Could tighter security at places of worship prevent tragedies like this in the future? These questions remain open and painful for a grieving community. Meanwhile, the foreign policy stakes are immense. If Netanyahu arrives in Washington ready to finalize a framework, the administration could claim a historic breakthrough. But if the talks collapse, the optimism voiced today could appear naive. In the domestic arena, congressional leaders continue their late-night meetings with the president in search of a funding compromise. The outcome will determine whether hundreds of thousands of federal employees face furloughs. Reactions to Leavitt's remarks are mixed. Some praised her for providing clarity and showing empathy. Others accused her of jumping too quickly to label motive without firm evidence. Critics warn that politicizing tragedy for narrative advantage is a dangerous path. Supporters argue that the American people deserve transparency as soon as possible. In either case, her words are already shaping headlines and framing debate. As the day closed, one truth was undeniable: the nation is facing grief abroad and at home. In Michigan, families mourn, lives cut short in a sanctuary meant for peace in Gaza. Families cling to hope for a ceasefire after years of devastation. In Washington, politicians play brinkmanship with budgets and workers wait to know if their paychecks will arrive. Through it all, the White House attempts to speak with one voice through Karoline Leavitt. Her role is not simply to answer questions but to shape how Americans process these simultaneous storms. And so the story continues. Investigators will reveal more about the Michigan attacker. Diplomats will test whether peace is possible in Gaza. Lawmakers will decide if the government stays open. Each of these threads could alter the course of public trust. Each could change the political map heading into the months ahead. For now, the words of the press secretary are a snapshot in time: a nation wounded watching, a world waiting for answers, a White House determined to hold the microphone and define the moment. Would you like me to now condense this into a YouTube script version with a welcome line, subscribe, call, and short hook at the start, the way we did for your other uploads?